Welcome to Apex Magazine. Strange, surreal, shocking, beautiful. This is the Apex Magazine podcast. I'm your host and producer, Allie Grauer. Welcome back, audience. It's wonderful to have you tuning into this brand new episode of the podcast. Have you had a chance to check out our Kickstarter this past month? Apex Magazine editors Jason Sizemore and Leslie Connor are running a Kickstarter to fund a print compilation anthology titled Apex Magazine 2021. Apex Magazine 2021 will be a print anthology compiling all the original short stories published in Apex Magazine during the 2021 calendar year. The anthology will include 48 stories from a diverse array of new and established writers and will feature the Apex Magazine Reader's Choice Award winning artwork Entropic Garden by Marcela Bolivar on the cover. A majority of the authors will include annotations about their contributing stories. For more information, visit www.apex-magazine.com/Kickstarter. And if you're able to, be sure to back the project before it closes on Friday, May 6th. Additionally, our next live stream of Snap Judgment is coming soon as well. Last quarter's Snap Judgment was co-judged by Jason Sizemore, Leslie Connor, and Arlie Sorg, co-editor of Fantasy Magazine, and we had an absolute blast. Stay tuned for future announcements including date, time, special guest judges, and more. You can get the latest updates by following Apex on Twitter at ApexMag or by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/ApexBookCompany. If you are enjoying what we have to offer on this podcast, we cordially invite you to become an Apex Magazine subscriber or Patreon supporter. For as little as $2 a month, you'll gain early access to our monthly microfiction themes and an archive of past author interviews and other insights. Visit patreon.com/ApexBookCompany for more information. And now, let us turn our attention to this month's story. Apex Magazine proudly presents Episode 89, Hoodie, by Tonya Liburd. Read by the author.
A hoodie is what a Sukiya give birth to when she trick a midnight robber, or so Rose calls herself, passed off to orphanages, no idea who her mother and father were, didn't know the source of herself. Because she wasn't given a proper foundation to stand in the world, Rose got resourceful. She has a voice. She has a voice. So sing. Go sing on the street now, she says to herself one day. Maybe someone will give you money. Beautiful voice, can talk a good mile, but if you look at she once, you say she the devil child. $, for a song, mister. One hand shoved in the back pocket of her black jeans, the other cupped in supplication as she asks so repeatedly to passers-by, it was almost rote. $, for a song, mister. Most ignore her as they walk down Frederick Street in Port of Spain, Trinidad's capital. Some suck their teeth and walk past, looking straight ahead. One man, in black knee-length pants and a buttoned grey shirt, takes one look at her and stops. $, for a song, mister. She asks him, the day 3/4 done, her voice almost a complete monotone. He scratches his head under his black hat, disturbing his short, bleach-tipped dreads. Why you here? like she was there on vacation. Her hand lowers for a moment, then it comes back up. You want a song? Why don't you get off the street? As if his suggestion was the magic pill that could solve why people end up on the streets in the first place. You're going to give me money or what? Why don't you smarten up and just get a job? Like his middle-class living ass is the expert on homelessness. Get out of my face before I hit you. Gwan. I said Gwan. Gwan way. He stands there, looking at her for a second, then makes a sound with his teeth before heading off. Stay there then, the rest of your life. Judgmental, narrow-minded asshole. Ass hat. She puts on a stoic face and lifts her red hoodie over her head in unconscious defensiveness against a coming threat. But these microaggressions always hurt. Just that little bit. Enough to register and trigger the front she has to make. Trying to kill yourself. I woke up like this. Disheveled, depressed, demoralized. Yes, you can wake up like this too. So Rose finds herself wandering along lonely road, mostly dirt, crickets chirping away in the gutters on either side. A breeze that feels out of place in the crisp night makes her feel like someone's walking over her grave, passes through her. Rose looks about for the source of the breeze and finds it when she looks up. She lets her breath out through her teeth, real careful like, then realizes this could be her liberation, but only if her knees could please stop knocking together in fear. Rose takes in the cold air that smells of death, lets death fill her lungs, embraces it, because if she does this right, she will not be long for this world. She looks up again at the ghostly white, impossibly tall Moko Jambi straddling the road. According to all the folklore, if she passes between those legs, they will clamp together, crushing her, and that would be the end of Rose. Rose tries her best to saunter up as close as she dares. The chill of death emanating from the Moko Jambi seeps into her bones. Do it, she commands herself. Her voice isn't as strident as she'd like, but she manages to get the words out anyway. $, $, for a song, mister? The awful majesty of the towering pale white, almost pearlescent figure straddling the path struck her almost dumb. But she lifts her chin defiantly, hoping that's enough to anger it, stepping further on the path, underneath and between the Moko Jambi's legs. Shutting her eyes in anticipation, she wishes silently, let it end. Demands. Rose almost loses her sense of place, her sense of footing when she opens her eyes, wondering what's taking so long, what's happening. She sees the Moko Jambi lower itself, come down to her level, and it sniffs. I know who you are, it says, its voice a hoarse whisper evoking images of wild winds dashing upon a rock by the Caribbean Sea. Rose jumps. You smell of suya, it says. And midnight rubber, yes. I'm not a suya or midnight rubber. You might not be, but your mother and father are. What? I can smell it on you, I said. Sibilant words dripping from him edged in sharp irritation, anger. I know your mother. I know where she is. What? You're listening, Oa? Yes, I'm listening. And it tells her where she can find her mother. As to Rose's father, it couldn't tell where he is. I could just tell you that he is part midnight rubber. I don't know where he is anymore, but your mother could probably tell you. The Moko Jambi says, if she is even in touch with him. The one thing guaranteed to give you a fright is the sound of a Sukiya screaming in the night. It was the screams that they talk about the next morning. Unholy, unearthly screeches that start out in the bush. That and the fire in the sky a couple of neighbors had seen during the night. A Sukiya is near. Danger is about. Stay in, they say to each other. They didn't know that the Sukiya is one of their neighbors. During this night, she gives live birth on her bed, all by herself. Her child is born with a call, an occurrence that tends to be interpreted as a portent, especially in certain African cultures. She ignores it. She pulls the caul off the baby's face, casts it aside in a white enamel basin. She staggers outside, discards the caul, the afterbirth, blood, under a hibiscus tree, heads back inside. When everyone was long gone under the cover of the night, the Sukiya wraps the child in a blanket and heads unobserved out the door. She walks to another part of Port of Spain to the St. Dominic's Home for Children, formerly known as Belmont Orphanage. Inside the blanket that the child is wrapped in is a note with the name she'd chosen for it, Rose. So she'd know there's time and blood would be drawn from a prick of thorns or something else. Blood also for the blood that she herself feeds on. She puts the baby at the doorstep. When she arrives back home, as she crosses the threshold, she dusts her hands off and says, "Matter fix, problem solve." No more child, and it's over as fast as that. You know how she dresses? She dresses with red. Red like all the blood she Sukiya mother shed. What these bloody footprints doing at the front of your door, Olive? Dorothy stands at Olive's. That would be the Sukiya's door. One plump hand on her hip. She dusts something off her dark teal dress and leans her head back, getting ready to yell to be heard. Olive! And indeed, there is. Two bloody red footprints on the plain concrete, right at the doorstep. It's Dottie. I'll come to bring you some pillow, Olive. When there's no response, she does a strips. A practice, drawn-out suck of the teeth. Come outside, you hear, Olive? See I don't see the thing, Olive. Nothing. The hell is going on with this woman that she have this at she door? You think she hurt? Another neighbor asks tentatively from the hedge at the end of the Sukiya's property. You think she inside? Open the door, you hear, Olive? They wait, to no avail. An ill-matched pair. They clash from the very start. They've got a job to do, which would benefit them both, never mind the cost of the human life they were arranging to end. Whatever silent amusement that Olive gave herself when in the company of the somewhat cloddish midnight robber, and his back was turned, him in his all-black get-up and oversized sombrero with numerous miniature skulls, garish designs on his flared pants and top, even the more chilling sigils on his platform shoes, elicits nary a response from a fellow creature of the night. It didn't last long at all and rapidly turns into boredom and vehement annoyance. Then he does what males who buy into the innate sexism still around in the air, like a cold, do. He tries to take charge at her expense, putting her second in all matters of the job. That would not do at all. So the Sukiya decides she'll teach his ass a little lesson. She decides to seduce him. She isn't young, but she isn't old either. She was more than attractive enough and wily enough. She tempts him, taunts him, torments him, then leaves him, ridiculing him. But there was one little thing. She got pregnant. The perfect comeuppance? What would you do when you find out who you are? What you're made of? Rose's fingers always peel at the fingertips, beneath her nails, at the cuticles. The skin would come away and curl back on itself, like a burnt page. When she was told who her mother is, Rose gets an idea. She experiments with pulling it off. To her amazement, it comes off almost whole, and the peeling went far beyond her fingers. She was able to peel whole sections of herself off. It does not come off whole, like they say in stories about Sukiyans. She is disappointed about that, and she's only half Sukiyan, she reminds herself. She keeps trying. The skin underneath is wettish, damp, not quite ready for the outside world yet, but will firm up in time. When nobody wants you, you might very well end up not wanting yourself. Serendipitously, it is one of those rare days where Rose has no luck with asking for spare change, so that means walking. She shouldn't have peeled. The walking irritates her new soles into blisters. She walks up the hill, past the children playing cricket, the ones throwing nuts high in the air and catching them in their mouths, past the curious neighbors sitting in their porches to the house at the end. By then her blisters have popped. When she arrives at her mother's threshold, she takes off her shoes. Bloody footsteps again on those steps when the hoodie comes to find the Sukiyan. She takes one look at the mess her feet are and flings the shoes away. Taking in a huge breath, she screams at the door, "Mother!" The neighborhood reacts to the unearthly scream by parents dashing outside to take their children off the path and hurry them inside. Others come out of their houses, some yelling to others, "What was that? What happened?" Rose thinks she hears movement inside. The door unlocks softly. The woman Rose sees at the door is dressed in a fine, loose, brownish tan cotton dress and wears an intense, wary expression. "How did you find me?" said more like a statement than a question. "Amoka Jambi told me," Rose answers, the pain in her feet prickling the edges of her mood raw. She hears the sudden hissing of an indrawn breath. For an instant, the Sukiyan's eyes blaze. Her mother, the Sukiyan, takes a calculated look past Rose to the surroundings. "Come in." "Mother don't want she. Mother afraid of she. Nobody likes she." Ruth's mother, the Sukiyan, looks out the window, arms folded, while talking to her. Won't look at her. Her gaze seems to be directed out at some hibiscus tree. "So, what do you want to know?" she starts at length, her tone one of disinterest. "What's your name?" "Olive." "Tell me about yourself." Rose didn't know where her determination had gone. Her feet are busted up for something. Olive looks at Rose now. She shrugs, looks back out the window she is leaning up against. "I was an unhappy woman who became a less unhappy Sukiyan." "What was your childhood like?" "Not ideal, but uneventful." "Were your parents dead?" "How did they die?" She sighs. "I killed them." That trips Rose up. Why?" "I never really liked them in life. We weren't particularly close, and there seemed to be nothing stopping me from dispatching of them after I transformed." Do you have any brothers? Sisters?" Jisukiyo sighs again. "Yes, but I'm not sure where they are now." She looks from the window. "And I doubt they could be happy to see the daughter of a Sukiya just show up on their doorstep to say hello, family or no." Rose's heart sinks. The history lies with this woman, this Sukunya, who is not forthcoming with any details. How is she to find out about herself, her past, where she belongs in the world? The woman is giving nothing. I need to know things. How many brothers or sisters did you have? The woman unfolds her arms in some irritation and seems to be tiring of the questions. What good will it do? What you going to do? Walk up to the door like you did mine and say, hey, I know your sister killed your parents and she decided to become a Sukiya, and my father's a midnight robber and the folktales are true, but I just want to say hi and find out about my ancestry. Her tone becomes subtly mocking. And maybe have a relationship with you. And I promise not to kill you. I'm not so bad as my mother. How many? Desperation finds some of Rose's steel again. 2. 1 brother, 1 sister. Both half. Where are they? I don't know. She virtually growls. Where are they? I don't know. The Sukuya catches Rose's gaze, and I don't care. Why did you have me? The Sukuya blinks slowly and gives her a look. Rose feels like she was swallowing the world with that nervous action. It hurt. Where's my father? Her mother looks out the window again. Silence. Your father dead, gal, she says bluntly, throwing it over her shoulder. Rose couldn't hide it anymore. She gulps air. Tears come down her cheeks. The Sukiya takes in a breath of exasperation. She looks like she's had it. Probably can't understand why I'm hurting, thinks Rose bitterly. Sukiya heads to the door, opens it, gestures outside. Do you have any more questions? As if Rose is wasting her time. She really doesn't want me, does she? Rose thinks. Then realizes for the first time that she had held out some sort of hope that there'll be some sort of acceptance. There isn't. And the mother is busy stamping anything that resembles that out. One more question. Where did you grow up? Mother takes in a deep breath. Lets it out. Is she actually getting angry? Sarah. Again, I ain't human anymore, and I wouldn't advise just running up to anybody you find there and saying who you are and who your mother is. The Sukiya gestures outside again. I need shoes. Take those. Her mother points sharply to a pair of worn-in Converses at the door. I don't need them anyway, and neither will their former owner. Rose chills at that. The beggars literally can't be choosers, so she picks up the shoes and walks out the door. The door doesn't quite slam behind her, but it isn't closed gently either. Poor little thing, poor little girl, trying to find herself all alone in this world. What do you do when you're not exactly an orphan, but you might as well be one? You grow up in orphanages and you find your blood family, only to have them reject and discard you like an old bandage. You pick up the pieces of yourself, broken and scattered on the floor like one of those numerous dares they put out for Diwali, broken and the oil leaking out. And you start a new day. Step, step, one step at a time. Back to the beginning. Rose goes below Kirk Junction, passes the little bridge leading up to one of the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine's campuses. Keeps going, passes Rapsy Street, walks past our house where she can hear just the two of us playing on the television. There must be an interlude between TV programs to hear that. Finds the road where she encountered the Mokojumbi, stops at the spot where she had seen it straddling the road, and waits. Eventually it appears. It coalesces into view. It spots her and lowers its head, snakes to her face. "You are here again," it says in its hoarse whisper. "Yes, I went to find my mother after you told me where she was." "Did you find her?" Rose's head lowers, partially so she doesn't have to look into those eyes, that face. "Yes." The creature is silent. "She's an evil woman," it says, speaking up again, sibilant. Rose nodded. "She chose that path." Rose took in a deep breath. "What did she tell you?" "Not much at all." "What did she say about your father?" "All she said was that he was dead." "Yeah, I figure you'd run into that sort of trouble, and I ask around in the underworld. You were a surprise form of payback for your trickery on that unfortunate midnight robber, your father. Trickery of a certain sort, if you understand my meaning." Rose looks straight at the Mokojumbi. She swallows hard. "How did my parents meet?" she asks it. "An arrangement. A job they had to do together, as humans would say." "Oh?" "Yes." It leaves her to continue the conversation. "How did my father die?" She said he was dead. "There were consequences for what they did. She let him take the fall." "Oh," I thought. "Is he buried somewhere I can visit?" "No, there are no remains." Rose's lip trembles. "You were not expected, and your mother is in no way going to accommodate your presence in her life. You were born and left at that door of that orphanage within the day." Rose suspected the worst, but to hear it said out loud verified. "Thank you. I think that would be all for today." It rises back to its majestic height. Rose starts to half run away. She wants to get away from the truth. "Hey!" A deep rumble from above. Rose halts, looks up. "Just because people don't like you, people reject you, does not mean you can't find worth in yourself. Look at me," it says. "Everybody afraid of me, nobody like me, yet you're talking to me. You find I have worth." It helps what it says. It is true, but she still feels like her heart was way down in the Converse shoes she was wearing. "Thanks," she tells the Mokojumbi. "I'll try to remember that." It goes still, silent. She walks away instead of half running this time. A new beginning. Rose discovers something else about herself. She can literally peel her physical pain away. It starts with the loose skin around a blister on her foot. Scratch, pull, and it kept peeling deeper, so deep as she went. And she takes the whole bottom of her foot off. Underneath, it's like brand new, like before. Baby soft soles, no pain now. So that's why she can successfully sing for her supper the vast majority of the time. Her father, his gift for gab, his voice, and how she can peel. She decides to go back and talk to the Mokojumbi when she needs to let things out. If she has half a foot into the spiritual underworld thanks to her parents. She might as well utilize it. She has always had a hard, the hardest hard, as people would say, life. But she wasn't raised to be a monster. Nor does she have it within her. The darkness in her heritage displays itself as self-destruction. So where did the light come from? People who are gone from her life now that supplied much needed anchor at the time. Like one of the women who worked at the orphanage who counseled behind the rest of the employees' backs until she was outed. Then she disappeared soon after. The lady who the orphanage hired to teach singing, who led Rose to understand she had a voice in more ways than one, and now they look a jumpy. She has worth. She has worth. She has worth. Yeah, Rose feels it. A definite response from some part of her. She was believing it.
Tonya Liburd shares a birthday with Simeon Daniel and Ray Bradbury, which may tell you a little something about her. She has been the recipient of a 2021 Horror Writers Association Diversity Grant. Her work either is, or has been, used in course materials, including at Writing the Other, as examples of code switching. She is also an editor over at The Expanse magazine. You can find her blogging at https://www.tonya.ca or on Twitter at SomeSillyWowzer. Or you can join her on Patreon at www.patreon.com/Tonya Liburd. Sounds used in this episode are licensed from Soundstripe.com. Music in this episode includes Dum Dum and Titan by Ghost Beats, licensed from Soundstripe.com. The theme music for the Apex Magazine podcast was written and produced by Alex White. If you enjoyed this podcast, visit apex-magazine.com for more strange and beautiful fiction by Tonya Liburd and many others. Our genre magazine also includes interviews with authors and artists, fiction reviews, and nonfiction by some of the leading voices in the business. Subscriptions are $24 annually. That's apex-magazine.com. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.